So, hi from my side. I'm very glad to be here at Java Zone in Oslo. My name is Sebastian Daschner. I'm a freelancer and consultant from Germany, Munich, and I'm working with Java EE. And today I'm going to talk about, well, lightweight Java EE. But first, a few marketing things about myself. So, I'm a developer, architect, consultant, whatever you call it, based in Munich, Germany. I'm a JAX-RS expert group member. So I help defining the Java EE standards. Who of you does not know the JCP, the Java community process, I highly recommend to take a look into it. And I'm also a so-called Java champion. So apparently that's what happens to you when you speaking a lot about Java. And yes, I'm a quite regular conference speaker here. More about myself, I'm offering some workshops and some trainings regularly. So in the city of Munich and also in the city of Oslo at Programutvikling. Was it about right? I just trained it before and asked how that's pronounced. Okay, very good. Thanks. And yes, in Oslo in December, so check it out if you want, and also virtually on demand. So if you have like any need to have a Java EE consultancy or workshop, just contact me. Yeah, and actually there were all of my slides I have so far because slides are boring, you know, and we want to have code, right? So all of the slides are just marketing slides. Anyway, lightweight Java EE. So who of you thinks that Java EE is somewhat heavyweight? Hands up, please. Yes. Oh, quite a lot. Okay, so actually give me a few words. So why do you think it's heavyweight? Is it like the memory footage? Is it like the download size? Or just shout it out. Anything? Testability, okay. XML, very good. What else? Like maybe application servers? No? Well, let's see. Okay, so because basically I'm telling you today why Java EE is actually one of the most lightweight enterprise frameworks out there compared to other competitors. So actually, yeah, testability and XML. XML is a quite good start, and apparently application servers as well. So basically, I don't want to overload you with some boring slides, but rather than with code. Right, you agree? So let's code something together, and at that time I will show you like where the benefits of coding with Java EE are in both like the productivity for developers and also about the lightweightness or heavyweightness. So, well, actually I would just start. Let's call it Java Zone as we hear. So this is a script which creates a Maven project. This is actually just a helper Maven archetype to bootstrap any kind of project. Yeah, it's quite slow because of the Wi-Fi. Hopefully it will be finished soon. Because I like to start things, you know, from scratch, so you don't get a lot of magic thrown at you and say, oh, where does that come from? But yeah, hopefully the Wi-Fi works. And yes, let me just check. Is that? Oh dear, yeah, that's a good start. Because the Wi-Fi doesn't work. Oh yeah, it works. It's just kind of slow. Okay, eventually this will be finished. It's not a good start for lightweight, I know, but this is more like Maven. Oh, you see, 48 minutes, but just to create the project, fair enough. So anyway, what did I do now? I just created a Maven project, which I will show you just right away in IntelliJ. It's basically a Maven archetype, which I just open from scratch. To create the most simple Java E7 project. So anyway, I will be using Java E7 together with Java 8, and I will show you how simple and lightweight it can be to go with that. So who of you has been using Maven? Okay, all right. So you know what all the story is about. So what if I tell you this, come on, is all you need for... can you read that? It's a little bit small, right? I just try to increase the font size. Nope. Oh dear. Yeah. No, that didn't work as planned, so sorry for that. I actually have a nice shortcut to increase the font size, but somehow it doesn't work. Anyway, what if I tell you this is all you need for a POM file, for a Maven POM file? You probably won't believe it, right? This is what I consider the most simplest Java E7 project because it actually contains nothing. It has a Java E7 API dependency, which is, and that's the important part, provided. So what does that mean? We have a project which gets built to a WAR file, and it contains only the code you are writing in your project, and it is compiled against the Java E7 API, and that's it. And nothing else on the production side. So the WAR file will contain nothing else in your code. And this is actually very good for a few reasons. I will tell you later more about that later. And yeah, but actually let's start coding right away. Anyway, I forgot to mention, if you have any questions, just right away, please interrupt me. Be rude, interrupt me, and ask anytime you like. I will repeat the question for the audience. But I think for now it's simple. Yeah, and it's for now this contains the JuxRS configuration. It's just a class which extends the JuxRS application class to bootstrap the whole thing, and that's in. Everything else is empty. Oh yeah, we have a beans XML as well. Talking about XML, that's the only XML we need. Why do we need it? Because of this thing, bean discovery mode all. Actually, we wouldn't even need the whole thing, but if we want to inject CDI managed classes without having to annotate the class, then you need this. But that's actually all. So you need 5-6 lines of codes. That's it of XML, but you don't need to change it. Well, besides the Maven artifact, fair enough, but that's not part of Java EE. Yeah, since we're at Java Zone, let's call it Zone EE, or actually Zone EE's resource, because we will talk about Zone EE's or something. Oh, that's a shame that the font size doesn't work. Sorry for that, because I like to code in this example. Who of you has been using JuxRS? Hey, that's nice, because I'm in the expert group. I like JuxRS. So basically, what I will show you in the next few minutes is like a simple Java EE application. There's nothing really like interesting or oh my god, that's totally new about it. But actually, while coding it, I will show you what are the benefits of having Java EE, and actually why these quite simple examples show you what's good in it and what's good for you. So we will call something like Zone EEs, and yeah, let's just start right away, right? So I will return like get Zone EEs, which creates a JuxRS resource, which returns, let's call it Zone EEs, right? Something like this, yeah. I'm not very creative with names, sorry for that. And actually, we will create a few classes here. Just, yes, just, nope. Just to show you something and how to use the framework and what's good in it. So I will just bootstrap a few things right away. We will include a managed bean, of course, as this is Java EE. And actually, I normally would tend to inject an EJB, right? By the way, who thinks EJBs are somewhat heavyweight? One guy at least. So just because of you, I will take a CDI managed bean. I will show you that it actually, for most of the use case, it doesn't even make a difference. And by the way, if you think they are heavyweight, then I recommend to look at some of Adam Bean's videos. He recorded videos measuring the overhead of EJB classes. So really going into detail, stress testing the application server and measuring against other things like just POJOs without anything else on the server managed. And you will see that there is really no overhead. Anyway, so because of that, I won't annotate it. But because of the beans XML I just showed you, this will still work to inject that class without anything, without any magic, any annotation, and CDI will take care of that. So anyway, this will now ask the CDI managed bean to give us these so-called zonies, and we will return them. So basically, this is a REST resource which returns a list of objects. It's quite simple and straightforward here, but it will show you certain things. So this as well returns a list of these objects. So let's define the POJOs here. Basically, we would just have like a name. This is really simple and straightforward, because we're now not interested in any crazy complex business logic here. So I just create a name with getters and setters and default constructors and a toString method just to be convenient, and we need it later. So this is about Java Zone conference and Zone attendees, stuff like that. Normally, this is a CDI managed bean. You could also use an EJB if you have like a database lookup. This would be the part of it, but then you probably need EJBs just because it gives you transactions for free. But we don't even need them for now, so no worries, no EJBs for you. And yeah, actually, we won't do a database lookup here just because I'm lazy, but it doesn't matter. we would just return the objects here because we're not interested in that side right now. So hello Norway, right? And we return this here. And actually, this is the wrong return type. I want to show you something else. I want to show you how to create JSON DTOs in a really lightweight way with a lot of external dependencies. No, actually with 0 external dependencies. So I promised you at the beginning that this POM file is all you need. And actually, to return a JSON output out of a REST resource, you don't need anything except Java EE7, right? Because everything is already there, which you could possibly think of. Well, maybe not everything which you can think of, but most of the things you need. So there is so-called thing called JSON array. It comes from the JSON P API, Java API for JSON processing. Is there since Java E7. It's basically a way to programmatically create JSON DTOs from scratch, which we will do here. And as I said, I'm using Java 8, so we will do fancy lambdas and streams, right? So we have our Zony objects, right? So a list of objects here, which I do as a stream of objects. And I will map the stream of objects to a stream of JSON objects. So there's JSON array, and there's also a JSON object, which is in fact a JSON object easily. So we have the Zony here. And actually, if you call, that's the way how you call the JSON P API, JSON create object builder, and say basically add something like Zony name. And this is the benefit of having the programmatically way of creating JSON objects. So you're totally free in what you're doing here. And you say, give me the name and build the JSON object, and that's it. And now you have a stream of JSON objects, right? And yeah, the rest is just Java 8 syntax. So basically, oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. Basically, now we have a stream of JSON object, and we want a JSON array, so we collect the whole thing with nice method handle syntax, really unknown to Java developers, right? No, now you should know them. Java 8 has been there for a while. And we create a JSON array builder out of it, and by calling .build, we get a JSON array. Make sense? Questions? So what did we do? We asked our CDI manage bean to give us, please, the list of POJOs. We mapped that into a stream of these POJOs. We mapped that into a stream of JSON objects. We collected that into a JSON array builder, and then at the end, .build gives us a JSON array out of all these things. Quite boring, right? Because it's very simple. But what does it show you? It shows you to create JSON DTOs, you don't need to configure anything, and you don't need any external dependencies. And this is my whole talk. The whole talk, I won't show you too sophisticated examples, but I show you how to do it like in an easy way without needing to configure anything and without needing to juggling around Maven dependencies, right? Because everyone except Roberto doesn't like Maven, right? So you don't want to mess up with POM XMLs. That's why I wrote this POM once and almost never touched it again. No, just kidding. But this is all what you need here to create a RESTful web service. Anyway, that's all for this method. Let's say I will run that in a minute, that example. Let's say we have another thing here which creates a so-called Zony. And maybe we want to have like JSON, right? So we want a REST service, and we want the client to give us a JSON object which creates a new whatever. And we also want to provide JSON. We did that here from the list of all JSON objects, and now we also want to create something which consumes JSON, media type application JSON here. So JAX-RS knows that there will be JSON from the client, and this object will be deserialized from JSON, actually. And now we will call our nice CDI manage bean to create a new Zony. And that's basically it. So now we will say, hey, we have a new visitor, print it, whatever. Right? The interesting thing is you don't need to configure anything. Your JSON object, if it has like the name as attribute, will automatically be converted into a POJO. But still, that is quite simple and too simple. What if we want to have something like validation, right? There's another standard around called bean validation. It's quite common. And actually, we want to integrate that in a, well, most seamless way, right? Because nobody likes to configure stuff. So let's just add an annotation here saying valid, and another that it's not null. Basically said we want not null, it has to be there, and we want a valid Zony, which tells the bean validation implementation that somehow it has to be valid what we're doing here, and this object needs to be validated. And the cool thing again is you don't need to tell JuxRS to do this because JuxRS already knows. It's a standard within the Java EE umbrella, and as so is bean validation. So actually in the standard says, well, if your application server supports bean validation and supports JuxRS, then they both have to work together with each other. Which means if you have a JuxRS method, resource method here, it has to support the bean validation and call the bean validation functionality, which is great for you guys because you just call it right away and forget about all the rest. You don't need to configure and bootstrap bean validation here at that point. It would just work. So just for fun, let's create another pattern here. Let's somehow validate that against the regex on this, just small letters, whatever. You can think of any validation logic, right? And now this will work. Yeah, let's actually run this example. So as I told you, this will use Maven. So we will call Maven clean install. I know that's even not the most productive way to call Maven. You don't need to clean everything and you don't need to install if you just need to package. But anyway, when I use Java EE, I don't even care because it's so fast. Because, I will talk about that more later, it doesn't contain a lot because your WAR file is basically empty, and that's the reason why it's so fast. Oh yeah, and let's deploy it on Wildfly. So basically, this is a script which takes my WAR file and just deploys it on Wildfly, whatever, 9 or something. And same story as it's really, really small. It's quite fast. And by fast, I'm saying, well, this machine here is 6 years old. So anyway, now we have a really simple REST client, so we will call it, right? And let's call a cool command line Unix tool called curl, right? To call the whole stuff. Zone E resources. Zone E is, I guess, what's the name, right? Oh, not found. So what did I wrong? Zone EE resources. Zone EEs. Come on, tell me. You know better than I. I don't see it right now. Wrong context name. Oh, it's called Java Zone. Very good. Only one who's not sleeping. What's wrong with you guys? So, very simple, you know. You can also do some fancy command line magic to pretty print that. So actually that's quite boring, right? So we just have a JSON output, but the thing is with just plain Java E7, we created JSON DTOs, everything. Oh yeah, with validation, so probably you want to see that. So let's create something. So we're posting, right? We're posting a JSON from the client, so content type application JSON. And we're posting like, what was called name, it's like hello, right? And we're posting here, and it tells us, hey, success, and a new zone was created. Oh yeah, and just we had some validation, bad request. As I told you, this automatically integrates with JuxRS, which is cool because it's now like RESTful. It already knows RESTful like HTTP status code, bad request, because we did something wrong on the client side, because we horribly misspelled our username here, and it integrates with each other. You saw me, there's nothing, who's the guy, no XML files, nothing to configure to bootstrap JuxRS together with bean validation, right? And you can just do whatever logic you want to have here. Any questions so far? All right, so let's deep dive into that a little bit further, actually, to show you what else can be nicely combined with bean validation because of the standards working together nicely. So, for example, if I want to do more sophisticated things, then it's just this request regex pattern matching. For example, this is a username or something like that, and you need a database lookup. You know how it is. Like the real world is not simple as that. Real world always needs to integrate it. You always have a database something. You have a REST client call somewhere else. Therefore, everything needs to, have certain functionality. Therefore, we include like another thing. It's called, we want to validate a username. For example, username is not taken. Like, let's say this name is a username right now, and we want to validate the whole thing. Seriously, IntelliJ, I normally love you, but today you really act weird. This, however, will be a constraint validation annotation, which says, okay, now here this is a custom validation. Please, this name has to be validated somehow. And the somehow you tell him by this, let's call it username not taken validator, which is, this is now bean validation, which is a constraint validator. String, yes. string. And however, it's not about bean validation here, but what we want to do, we want to integrate stuff, because this is really what Java EE shines. So let's say, oh, we want to use a nice functionality here, so why not just inject it? Like, because we can inject everything, right? That's the spirit. So of course we need our Java zone, not EJB, but CDI managed bean again, to say, hey, I'm the validator, I don't know stuff about databases, but you certainly know. Java zone, please tell me whether is username taken, this string here. And well, here our CDI managed bean can say, well, access the database, do a REST client call, do whatever you like. This is really your application logic, right? So for now, we just say some random name. I'm not quite, good at inventing stuff. Let's just say, okay, ABC is taken, everything else not. But anyway, this can be really crazy complex business logic, database lookup, whatever you want to have. And this is the entrance. But what I want to show you that here, this is just how you integrate it with your managed beans in, well, as seamlessly as possible, because you just inject it without any XML or any configuration, right? So say if it's not taken, then it's valid, and basically that's it. So yeah, that's a funny example. Let's run it again for a clean deploy. Any questions so far on that example, like integrating stuff? Do you want to see something else? All right, so let's go for the zonies again, and now let's create thing again. Hello, yeah, that's fine. Hello is fine. ABC is not fine. Bad request. Now with our database or application logic. Simple, boring. But interesting thing is it integrates well with each other without needing to configure anything. And that's actually the big benefit for developers, that your developer experience is really, really good. Nobody wants to write XML, and nobody wants to write a boring bootstrap, what's the name, boilerplate code, because you want to focus on the business logic, right? Because we get paid for the business logic, not for bean validation constrained startup bootstrapping classes, right? So this is the talk for that. What else do we have? Like nice things we want to integrate with each other. So actually try that with any other lightweight enterprise framework. Even for modern ones, you need to configure stuff. Because, well, that's a good thing of Java EE, and the big benefit, the specs know each other. If there is a JUXRS, then it says in the JUXRS specification, well, guys, you have to support bean validation, you have to support JSONP if your Java E7 application server, supports the whole standard. And whatever it is in the Java EE umbrella specification has to be there. And this is, well, bad for the vendors because they have to support everything, but this is good for you guys, developers, because you can just use right away, which is there, use all the goodness of the specifications, and you can rely on stuff being there and just, without needing to configure it, just go for it. And it has to be there because the specification says so, right? So what else do we have? We have like bean validation. Oh, we can have like configuring stuff. Configuration, every enterprise project needs configuration, which is another very boring topic because you don't get paid for configuring, you get paid for revenue on your website. As I said, inject CDI is like the glue for everything. Use it as much as you can. It will help you here. Now we also don't need any third-party dependencies. We just, for like configuration, your certain environments have different stuff. You have like system properties who need to be injected and read it somewhere, and so on and so forth, right? So we have a like string configured property something, which needs to come from someplace, right? Yeah, so a cool thing of CDI, you can write like producers, like let's call it whatever, configuration producer. And now you can actually tell it, well, I mean, this is easy. This is like a class that it will always be like an instance of this Java zone thingy. But actually this can be configured, can come from a database, can come from somewhere, right? Your configuration could change dynamically. You could do a REST client call. You could do, I don't know, system properties. It's probably the simplest thing. Whatever you can imagine, whatever your project is, right? So that needs to be highly configured. But it can be, as there is a cool thing called produces, not from JUXRS, but from CDI here, which produces stuff like beans, which you can inject later. And now this producer is like expose config. Yeah, well, maybe a method. and now you can do whatever you like. And you can access the so-called injection point, which is this thingy here, and you can access certain information. So why would you need that? As I said, imagine you getting information from some database, you're getting information from a property file, and you want to do stuff dynamically here, right? So if you're using Spring, Spring has something like add value, right? And then you can do like a string, which is like a key from a lookup. Like Delta Spike has something similar. But actually, for the most simplest example, you don't need all these things. You can go with plain CDI, and the reason is qualifiers. You can write a qualifier for that, and then you will be able to inject that. So, but actually, there's even something more simple. You can use the injection point here. So what does it give you? This gives you information about all these things here, about this name of the field, what's the injected field name, about the type, obviously, and about any annotations, whether there are like except at inject, if there are any other qualifiers here. So for example, give us the member, give us the declaring class, and let's actually just return that right away. And for the injection point, also give us the field name. And now I would just configure that property as if that would be the value. But now you can think of, you can have like a hash map, you can have a property file, you can have system properties, where this is basically the key, how you access information. So what could you do? You could do something like convention over configuration, that you say you have a property file, like the full qualified class name, saying here JavaZone Zonies resource dot property equals to some configured property, and it automatically will be loaded here. You can do that programmatically, right? So you get the story. You can do stuff dynamically here, and it will work. Or you want to have a more sophisticated way, saying I want to qualify something here, like configured. That's just a name I'm inventing. You could also use add value or something else, like whatever, property name. And you configure that property name to this property here. And now this will be a new annotation you just define. And this will actually be a qualifier. And just because I'm lazy, I'm stealing the other annotations here. I'm going to document it as well from this guy. So I just need to import, yes, yes, retention runtime, where I can add this annotation. I don't need that, and that's it. I just invented a new qualifier with a value, right? And the value that's important is non-binding. Actually, otherwise, that would be taken. The value would be taken into account by CDI prematurely. But you don't want that. You want your own logic how to use that value in your configuration properties, right? So that's basically it. And now in your at the point where you access it, you just provide the name, the key name here, and actually in your producer, you write a second method like expose, like configured property or whatever. Again, you have the injection point, and this will now be annotated with producers as well. But to not getting a clash with the first one, you have therefore this qualifier configured. And at this point, this value won't be used because it's a producer method. And now you can ask the injection point again, well, actually give me, let's do it the same thing here we had, but also give me the value which you provided, right? The value in the annotation, because you will need it to look up all your stuff from your properties dynamically, right? So you have the configured annotation, and from now you get the annotation, the actual annotation, and you will get the value. Right? And if you can't imagine how that will look like, I will show you in a second. Let me just enhance my JuxORS output to be able to show you guys how that will look like property. And this will be the property name here, and the second one will be the configured property, this one here. So again, let's rebuild that, and then you will see, that this will be taken into account on your configuration, how it was dynamically produced in your producer, and added to your REST output. So let's have this stuff again. Oops, font size. Yeah. So now we also have these two objects, but we now included, you see, that was dynamically taken from the injection point, from where we injected it. Property is the name of the field. Configure property here is the name of the second field, and that is the name of the value. And now I just concatenated them, but actually you will use this as, you know, your business application logic, how to access your configuration dynamically. And now at that point, because it's a CDI managed class, you can also like inject the entity manager, load stuff from the database, do whatever your configuration in your project looks like. Agree? So now you have the full flexibility, and you can inject it in the most simplest way. I mean, all of the frameworks or Delta Spike does nothing like easier for the developer than that. You just have like add inject and something like a qualifier maybe where you say, okay, what do you want to inject? And that's the most simplest thing to configure stuff, right? So again, very simple for the technology, but quite interesting if you think about how to use it in a best developer experience to say, okay, I want to use stuff here and I want to be productive and I want to write code without needing to juggle around configuration. Well, this is about configuration, but anyway, just to be productive. And I don't want to bootstrap things because there are several specifications, right? Yeah, what else is there? I could show you a lot of things from the whole Java E stuff. The cool thing is that everything integrates with each other quite well. And the biggest reason for that is obviously CDI, because CDI is just like a glue, like gluing objects together, mostly with context dependency injection, which is really, really good. Yeah, let's do another thing. Really cool stuff, again, injected, like events, CDI events, which can be really cool. When you say, well, I do want to like fire an event, like something has to happen in my application, but actually I don't want to like couple my code that much. So, for example, I want to notify guys, actually let's do that in the EJB, when a new zone was created. Actually it doesn't matter whether it's here or not, as it's Java E, everything works just, you know, out of the box without any configuration. It would be nicer for the architecture, but anyway. Now it needs to be notified when there is a new zone, right? So we have a new zone and we say, okay, there's a new zone to decouple things. And somebody else on the other side will know what to do when there is a new zone, right? So, and you throw that over the wall without knowing who will be handle it, which is good. And there will be a new, let's call it zone handler, whatever, who knows what to do when there is a new zone. So on new zone, something like a little bit of, well, reactive in a sense, and said, well, actually there was a new zone here, and it will handle stuff like it knows how to handle it, right? There's only one shortcoming of that thing. It will just work synchronously out of the box. If you want asynchronously, like you say, you want to have like, this is a long-running process, that's why you want to use events probably, like reactive programming also works, but then this has to be an EJB, because there is a so-called asynchronous annotation. You see, javax.ejb, sorry for you. This doesn't work with CDI yet. This is something which may be better in Java E8, but anyway, it doesn't matter, because you can still be productive if you just solve it by writing @stateless, and then you're done. Because now it is an EJB and not a CDI managed bean. What's the impact? Well, almost nothing, because nothing changes for you developers. You can still use it in the same way, because you can inject everything, no matter whether it's CDI or EJB, and you just go for it. And as I said, well, the performance impact or the heavyweight or not is like minimal. It's not even measurable. The only difference is you get like transactions, you get monitoring for free, because EJBs are required to support it. But anyway, for a developer, it doesn't even have like a big impact whether something is managed by EJB or or CDIs, because you just, you know, write your class, your Pojo, you annotate it with certain things, and you inject it somewhere else to use it, and you just go for it. You know, you don't even have to care whether it's managed by EJB or not. But anyway, now it's a CDI managed bean which will handle our event, right? And yeah, that's actually one of the last programming examples I want to show you. There will be a lot more, but as I said, this is nothing like groundbreaking or rocket science here. Very simple examples, but they should show you how to use all that technology without, you know, being overly complex, like having modules for no reason, having all of the other stuff for no reasons. And in a second, I'm talking more about packaging and WAR files and heavy weightness and lightweightness, right? Just for now, oh yeah, we need to create a new zone, right? Well, maybe not the ABC, but the other one. and said, well, new Zoni, and the other one, new Zoni. Here you see for this one, it's the same thread, because, as I said, synchronous per default. If you want asynchronous, you put add asynchronous, add stateless, you're done. It's the same story. Anyway, enough of this coding, unless you want to see something else. By the way, do you have any questions to all that talk? Sorry, is there what? Sorry, I couldn't understand it. Like, what's the? On GitHub, I can do that. It's not on GitHub yet because I just invented the names. Yes, I will do that, and I will ask the JavaZone guys to provide it. Yeah, thanks for the hint. But it's it's boring, simple. Any other questions so far? Yes, please. Oh my. A flag for XML? You mean instead of JSON? XML and the REST service, or? Sorry. The acoustic here is really, really bad. I apologize. Yes, the POM XML. What, this one failed on? Yes, this is because the Maven, as I said, Maven WAR-file plugin expects to be a WAR file there, but actually the Java EE standard doesn't require WebXML anymore, because if you just use JAX-RS here, the configuration does something else, something similar, like it actually adds up a servlet like dynamically without needing to configure the JAX-RS servlet per hand in the WebXML, which is really good because we can get rid of all that stuff as well. So we don't need a WebXML. We just unfortunately need that really small beans XML, but it stays that size, I promise, just because of CDI. If you're not injecting CDI as non-annotated classes rather than with at dependent or something, then you can even get rid of that. So then it's almost no XML. Yes?
The beans XML?
Uh-huh.
Can't it just be empty?
Actually, it doesn't even need to be there. As I just said, so the only reason is Beans discovery mode here, because, because per default it's annotated, and therefore it means only annotated classes can be injected per default. But we don't want that. We want to inject like everything, and this is the reason why I could inject this here into the resource class without any annotation here, right? But this means this will still be a CDI managed bean in that case, and it still works because of that beans XML isn't there. If you want to get rid of the beans XML, then here you write at dependent, and then you're done, and get rid of all the other classes which are not which are injected without any annotation, and then this can be used as well. This is just like the default behavior. Yes, weld. Uh-huh.
It says that the beans XML can be completely empty. It just needs to be present.
Yes, that's probably a specific thing for weld. But if you don't care which implementation you use, I will always go with the standard way, which ideally works everywhere. Of course, that's even better. You're right. But stay as close to the standard if possible. If at some day you want to have the insurance to switch providers, maybe, or you don't need to be stuck to some vendor. But yeah, you're totally right. Yes. Any other things here for the code? All right. If you have any other questions later or something comes to your mind, just let me know. Anyway, so what did I do here the whole time? About Java EE. So what I often hear, I mean, if you compare this kind of approach with all the annotations and stuff like that to the old J2EE world, then it's quite a different. And also, like I redeployed it several times. Probably if you do it with an old WebSphere, big iron, then it won't be finished for now if I start in the beginning, right? So the thing is, I built a WAR file here. And that was actually my recommendation for all of the enterprise projects. You just need a WAR file which uses the Java E7 API, ideally together with Java 8, and that's it. And what did I do the whole time for the target? I built that WAR file here, which is, well, almost empty. I can show you. Target WAR file. It contains, well, a few meta information, and actually just the classes I just wrote. Nothing else. No jar files, not a lot of configuration, no external dependencies, and that's it. In the past, we probably deployed ear files. Ear files, these funny things which are zipped and have another WAR file and another jar file for all the enterprise stuff. In July, I was in the beautiful city of Prague, and for my family, I bought one of these, you know, the Matryoshka, the Russian dolls from a family. You know, the dolls which you can open, and there is another doll inside, a smaller one, and this can be opened as well, and there's another one, a smaller one. And actually, this reminds me on the concept of of EAR files, right? You have a file, you unzip it, oh, there's another zipped file, like a WAR file and the jar file. Oh, let's open the jar file, the WAR file, there's another jar file in it, you know? This may be nice for, well, decoration at home, but not nice for enterprise projects. Why? Because you need to zip it at build time, and the application server needs to unzip it at deployment time, which is, you know, not needed. And my approach is, or my highly recommendation, go if you have one team, ideally a small team, which delivers one application, you packet it in one WAR file, and you deploy it on one application server with one application per server, and that's it, and that's the easiest way. And you don't have any problems, you don't have long deployment times because of, you know, unzipping everything, and it works. You don't have any problems with class loading hierarchies, you know, because you have several class loaders and, oh, it's in the wrong one class, not found exception, all that stuff. You don't have any problems. And, well, the good thing is, nowadays, the application servers, and that's the reason why I can do that, are really, really lightweight. If you download any recent application server, no matter if it's Wildfly, if it's Tommy, if it's WebSphere, Liberty Profile, that's important. WebSphere Liberty Profile has nothing to do with the old world. That's a really, really good one of the fastest. Or, you know, Payara, Glassfish 4, they are all really, really fast. They are small in download size. They start up like in seconds. I mean, you saw it, right? And this thing is quite old. And they deploy in also seconds. And this is how it's supposed to be done. You know, you don't have to wait like a long time, right? And actually, this is the reason why you can go with a single application per application server. Because if, oh, actually I can run it again and look at the, I even haven't measured a lot, you know, the overhead of all that stuff, because it actually never, you know, mattered. Even on that old machine here, we could do like, you know, memory lookup. Oh, where is it? So that's basic. That's certainly the IDE. You know, that's a Java process, and here, yeah, that's it, like 300 megabytes. Oh yeah, by the way, my Chrome browser eats up way more memory than a fully fledged Java E7 application server. You know. So memory over, and this is just, you know, I downloaded it and run it from scratch, and this is nothing optimized. Again, what I'm saying, the overhead is really, really neglectable, like the memory consumption or download sizes. So if you ask any system administrator and you say, well, I now saved a few megabyte of memory footprint, you know, but it took me 2 weeks, took a week of like developers' time or whatever, because I used some, I don't know which framework or technology, you know, it doesn't make sense, right? And the whole talk about Java E being heavyweight nowadays, I don't even get it. I always ask the people, well, what is heavyweight? Is it download sizes, things? It's you know, the memory consumption. Is it the performance? Because you can measure the performance no matter if you have EJBs or CDIs. It's, you know, very, very extremely fast. The startup times are fast thanks to the magic of like OSGI and modularization on the application server. So it only boots up the things it needs for the specifications I use and stuff like that. So it's really, really fast. So it's, you know, on the application servers, there's no point of being, you know, heavyweight again. Any comments on that? Hopefully disagreements. Come on, you can't agree. Or do you? If you don't agree, just let me know and we can discuss that. Yeah, that's about application servers, you know. In a second, I will also talk about standalone jobs, but one thing first, because this is actually where, thanks to containers, it's a really good approach to go what we've done for the last decades. The way of having that application server like installed somewhere and deploying a WAR file, a small deployment artifact. Because about Docker, and if I'm fast and actually can show you an example of a, like let's Dockerize this this application, right? Because we want to use Docker and a cool thing. So about Docker and the containers, I'm not a Docker expert, but it internally uses a copy on write file system. What does that mean? You have a file system, and when you change something, you don't actually change it, but you have a new small layer upon it where you have the diff, right? As a Git, you always add it on top of each other. This is why when you use Docker, you have a lot of these layered images. The good thing about that is, once you use a Java EE base image with Java installed, with the application server installed, you can build upon that as a base image. And what you build each and every time you're building your project and building your Docker image, you only have a small diff of what you're doing, right? Because when you have this small WAR file here, like 11K, that's nothing. Instead of shipping your maybe lightweight enterprise framework as a jar file or as a WAR file containing everything and deploying on Tomcat or Jetty, you're way faster with Java EE. Why? Because your WAR file is almost empty. Your WAR file doesn't contain all your plumbing and application server logic or framework logic because it's already on your base image, which is on your server. Or you go the old way with the on-premises hardware where you have the application server installed. Anyway, what you're shipping is small. Let me show you. Yeah, I have a few seconds. Let's Dockerize all that thing, right? Let's use a base image. I will explain it in a second what I'm just writing. Let's use like Wi-Fi as a base image, and we will just add our WAR file here, right? Targets, Java Zone, I hope I get it right. Wi-Fi, standalone deployments, I guess it is, if I remember it correctly. I hope it will. And let's build the whole thing, like Java Zone. Yes, thank you. Start the Docker because it's not even there. And now it's builds everything and it's done. Why it is? Because it's simple. What did I do? I actually can show you the base image here. This is the base image Docker file. It comes from, well, Java Alpine Linux, very small. Actually, I have several base images, and the reason for that is I have a Java 8 base image where I add Wi-Fi, and that's it. I even add the command here, and the reason for that is so my Docker file here is really, really small. It just, you know, every time I'm building it, it just adds the small WAR file, which gets changed. So if I'm building this here, okay, now that's cheating because it uses the cache. Docker also caches things, which makes it faster. But even if I don't cache it, it's, you know, very, very fast the whole time. And this is my talk. So no matter whether you use a new technology like Docker, no matter whether you use your CI server, your continuous integration server, to build and deploy the things to Nexus, to somewhere, because you always have to ship your diffs, your WAR file, your binaries somewhere. And the smaller they are, the faster you are and the more productive you are. And my talk is like developers' time is way more important than like other assets. So actually your time is very valuable. So you should be fast on your development process. When you're coding, that's what you get paid for. But when you're waiting for the build, when you're waiting for deployments, that's not what you get paid for. That's also boring, right? So you want to get that done fast. And by using that approach of having small deployment artifacts, no matter where your Docker files, you're shipping diffs or you're shipping WAR files, you know, you're copying something to Nexus, you're copying something to your production server, you have to be, you know, fast. And this is, I would say, the way to go. Actually, let's, just because it's fun, let's create a lightweight project. Let's create like 100 megabyte of junk just to show you what the impact would be of well, having a big deployment artifact. So actually I'm just, you know, creating random junk data in my WAR file, and I rebuild the whole thing. And well, it now takes some time to make the diff, and now it copies it, and you saw, well, it's a small difference if you have an SSD, but this is only 100 megabyte. And I've seen a lot of lightweight projects shipping everything, and you're adding up a lot of dependencies. Oh, by the way, about dependencies. As I said, the POM file, where is it? This one? This is all you need. And now you say, well, I want to add my log4j something framework, my logging framework. I want to add all these cool things called Apache Commons and Google Guava or Google choose which one. Always forget which one's dependency and the other one. I would say, or yeah, JSON mapping frameworks. I would say you don't need it. Like going the lean Java E7 way, you just saw it by, for example, the JSONP stuff. You don't need any other framework to write your thing. You don't need other dependencies to do stuff, or not a lot of other dependencies in the Java world, which you can't write by yourself. And now you say, okay, well, let's don't read, well, what kind of crazy talk is that? Let's not reinvent the wheel. But I say, you always have to be careful whether it makes sense to, you know, use stuff like Apache Commons when you add off a lot of dependencies, and even worse, transitive dependencies, because these are the things which really get annoying over time. For example, just at my very last consulting project, I had like, it wasn't Java EE, it was Spring and Mule, but anyway, we had a version upgrade and we had a lot of external dependencies, introducing transitive dependencies, and at the end we have like log4j in 3 different versions from 3 different, dependencies, transitive dependencies, and at the end you're just writing in your POM file and juggling around dependencies and managing conflicts of dependencies, right? Because you ship the whole thing to any server, which then has its own version of mapping framework something or logging framework something, and you have to take care of that. And I would say, well, it's nice that you saved a few lines of code, right, by using any dependencies. But if the benefit from it is like juggling around and configuring stuff, it doesn't make sense. Then you better go and write stuff on your own if it's not a lot, Don't reinvent like a ORM mapping framework. Doesn't make sense. But, for simple stuff, if I go to some project and they use, I don't know, Apache Commons, and this happened a lot of times, and then I do a usage search for Apache Commons and I see string utils is blank, right? And I say, well, thanks, congratulations, you just introduced, I don't know, megabytes of the external dependencies for stuff you could write in a few lines of code, right? So I don't say, well, never use external dependencies. I also have a project where I use JGit, where I use ASCII Doctor. Of course, I don't write that on my own, I just use it, but there should be a business value. If you're not using, if you're not doing professional string concatenation or logging, no, you're providing some other value, right? So you should focus on your business value and not using other stuff. So, please be, reasonable for the dependencies. And if you stay lean, and I promise you can do a lot of stuff by going Java EE 7 only without any other stuff than this. And your WAR file will be empty, your build will be very fast, your deployment stuff will be fast, and you're happy. And you don't need any workaround like, hot deployment and stuff like that. Yes, please. For testing, I use mostly just a plain JUnit together with Mockito, which is, actually this... The event can be done if you mock, like the injection here. Well, actually, that's probably that's a very good topic because this is hard to test actually. For the most things, I just use plain JUnit with Mockito. Why? Because CDI managed beans and also EJBs are just POJOs with some annotations, and they can be created and mocked very, very easily. In the old days, of course, we had to extend some local bean, blah, blah stuff. That wasn't that easy, but now it is, because it's just a POJO. You can just create a new instance in your test without caring about CDI, just for your test, because you're just testing the unit, and that's simple. Events and all that sophisticated stuff, actually, that's true. It's more hard for that. I will use a really simple integration tests like Achillean. Of course, this is slower, and actually, it's not part of this session. Sorry, I haven't. Actually, I've talked about that topic testing as well, and actually, I wouldn't recommend to use Achillean too much. Only for like one example. For example, if you have like events, exactly what I did here, and you say you only want to test whether you got all the annotations right and whether you get the wiring right, not the business logic, but the plumbing around, then you could have like a simple, very simple Achillean test, testing whether your event you just sent was received, right? And you could go for that, but don't try to test business logic with Achillean. Try to use acceptance tests or unit tests. And actually, I can't talk about that because we don't have much time, but yeah. But for the normal things, unit tests, the way to go. You really be simple here. In a unit test, you can just instantiate and mock whatever you like. And simple, because you just create a new class of, maybe not this, but a new class of this here. Well, it doesn't have any injector things, but all the injector things you can, inject with the tests and can be mocked, because I saw just simple POJOs. Agreed? Very good question. Anything else? We don't have that much time left. Anything else where you don't agree? How much time do I left? Oh, sorry. Minus 2 minutes. Okay, sorry. Otherwise, I would talk about standalone jars and why not to use them for normal things. But I think you get the stories. Why I would recommend WAR files. Actually, standalone jar files. It's a very good workaround if you're not allowed to manage your own application server, if you're not allowed to use Docker. If your ops guys are saying, well, we need this old Wi-Fi, then you say, okay, screw it, we just go with our standalone WAR file, standalone jar file. There are a lot of things from EE for now, like Tommy embedded, like Whitefly Swarm. Then package this as a last resort, as a nice workaround. You can do the same thing, but it's more heavyweight, right? But it's a nice workaround if you can't manage stuff yourself in your environment. All right, nothing else. Okay, then now I hope you enjoyed the session. I need to ask 2 favors from you. First of all, please do me a favor and stop calling Java EE heavyweight. And second, when you leave the room, please use the voting machine to tell me whether you liked my session or not. So I'm very glad I could be here. Thanks very much for your attention.